Unleash the power of purpose with impactful business voices, hosted by Nancy Backey and Anita Larson. Each week, you'll be inspired by stories from companies that are making a real difference in the world, and you'll learn practical tips on how to grow your business with an impact.
Hi, everyone. As always, we're excited to speak with another impactful business owner today, and we thank you for being here to listen to the Impactful Business Voices podcast. So we're here to find out what drives our impactful business owners, how did they get to where they are, and hope that it's going to inspire you to make an impact in your business as well. So we are your hosts. I'm Anita Larson.
And I'm Nancy Backey. Hi, everybody. And as always, we are super excited to speak with another impactful business owner today. We are stepping into a world of a dynamic speaking with Norm Boaz. For those that don't know him, he is a maestro in the world of voice coaching and impactful communication. He's got over 45 years of experience, and his expertise lies in refining voices, ensuring that they're not just heard, but they truly resonate. Whether you guys, you're an individual striving to be understood or a business seeking to influence, Norm's SpeakFluence philosophy offers invaluable insights. So his passion is to make your voice count. Norm, welcome to the show.
Hi, Nancy, Anita. Great to be with you.
Great to be here.
We're so excited to have you here, and I'm excited to meet you, Norm. And I'm looking forward to learning more about what you do and learning more about SpeakFluence. You know, this doesn't roll off your tongue. SpeakFluence. So let's just dive right in and tell us, like, what inspired you to start this journey and what you do. How do you impact people?
Well, going back many years, I've been in music all my life. My master's degree is in music. And even though I was playing trumpet throughout high school and college, I fell in love with singing while I was in high school. And coming out of college, I was doing gigs, but really went the path of choral work and singing and conducting, created my own company, and began to teach a lot of singing students. I also had singing groups that were out performing, my own professional quartet for caroling during the Christmas season, and my jazz vocal group, enmeshed in just a whole array of musical activities and so forth. So I had a vibrant voice studio in the San Diego area, and one afternoon I was in my office and the phone rang, and I picked up the phone. Hi, this is Norm Boaz. How may I be of service? And the gentleman on the other line said, Norm, I'm looking at your Yellow Page ad. You can tell how far back that was. And he said, I really didn't know where to look. I'm a VP with Sharp Hospitals throughout San Diego. I speak in board meetings. I speak in the community in behalf of our hospital. And I was sitting in a board meeting, and this gentleman stood up. He's a physician. He speaks often in our meetings, and he's quite eloquent. We all can't help ourselves. We lean forward when he speaks. And I was sitting there, and I realized sometimes he doesn't know what he's talking about, but it didn't seem to matter. And I said to myself, I need to speak better. And I've been searching. I came across your ad, and he said those magic words, Norm, can you help me? This gentleman had not been on my radar. We'll call him Richard. I said, of course, absolutely, Richard, when can we meet? By the time he got to my office, I had put together in my mind an outline and a feeling of what needed to be done to transfer how I helped singers to move audiences, to help speakers move audiences. And it was a joyride for several weeks. Richard tended to be soft-spoken, somewhat what I call horizontal in speaking. And we just basically changed the way he approached his speaking. he was off on his merry way, and I had created SpeakFluence, Make Your Voice Count, at that point. So for over 30 years, it was an appendage and an addition to my singing coaching. The last couple decades, I would say, my passion is focused on helping speakers, even though I also work with singers.
That is awesome.
So I see so many different people, and they walk themselves through my door and say, Norm, I heard you speak the other day, or you mentioned to me what you do. I think our company needs to bring you in and work with our customer service, or work with our C-suite groups, or have quite a few CEOs that work with me. You can line up 10 CEOs and they're all quite successful, but can they all speak and motivate a college classroom? So it's just a joy. And at my age, I love quality of life, but I can't play golf every day. And I feel like there's too much in me that I have to use it. I have to share it. I can't go, and whenever my days are finished on earth, I don't want to be full of stuff I haven't used. I want to kind of be empty.
Mm. Well, I love your music. You sent me a few of your CDs like a few years ago, and whoo, amazing. I'll be listening to your Christmas one at Christmas time. So yeah, love it.
Thank you.
No, thank you. What are some of the key principles that you teach in your SpeakFluence? You know, I love the name, Make Your Voice Count, you know, your workshops that you have. Can you give a few key principles that can, you know, our viewers and our listeners can learn from you?
Sure. Let's see where to start. You know, I think, I don't know if you, many who are online may remember the great football coach Vince Lombardi, and the Super Bowl trophy is named after him. But he would still start with his world-class athletes in spring training, or whenever they started to prepare for their football season. He would pick up a football and say, gentlemen, this is a football. And that's kind of my approach to great speaking, that there are just foundational basic principles that everybody's got to use. And then you have different personalities, introvert, extrovert, ambivert, just different styles. That's fine. But there are foundational principles that must happen in great speaking. You must be heard.
So you're teaching them something that they can't even do really. They don't even know where to start on that, really.
Right. So I just simplify. I pop open their brains and say, hey, these are simple things you got to do, and they're not rocket science. So here they are in a nutshell. Everybody must be heard audibly. You must project your voice. I mean, you've sat in meetings where someone raises their hand to make a comment, and you can barely hear them. They're talking like they're talking to the person next to them. Yeah. Hopefully the facilitator will repeat the question or the comment, but you've got to be heard, and it's just a lack of awareness. So consciously, before you open your mouth, say, whoa, look at the size of the group here. Am I going to be heard when I speak? The other problem is a lot of people then don't know how to be heard. Jennifer, would you speak up a little more? Jennifer will speak up for 10 seconds and go back to her regular level. But if she knows that she needs to support her voice and project it through what we call the mask and a number of other little techniques, now Jennifer knows what to do. So you must be heard. Secondly, you must be understood. You must articulate your words, enunciate clearly. Now, I'm not saying take away accents. I'm not a big believer in accent reduction. I think accents can be beautiful, but no matter what accent or style or dialect or that you're speaking in, that's fine. But we've got to understand what you're saying. And there's just very simple things that you can do to be able to do that. Speaking in chunks or phrases, speaking articulately where you actually have to practice so that your lips and your tongue and your face actually respond. That's another aspect. Practice. We have to practice to be better. Oh, yes. You must be heard. You must be understood. The third is you must be expressive. Now, some people, their style is kind of a laid back, and that's fine. But I think moving an audience, we need to help our words come to life.
Mm.
If I say, what a precious puppy, it's going to have an impact as opposed to, what a cute puppy, what a precious puppy, what a precious. So words will come alive as we speak. Yes, I do read a lot of children's books to my grandchildren, and it is such a joy to bring them alive. And so I would encourage our listeners to read aloud. All of my clients are required to read aloud 10 to 15 minutes a day so that they can begin to apply the SpeakFluence skills to their reading, and then they're going to hear themselves reading differently, because most of the world cannot read aloud very well. But as they hear themselves more and more, and as they learn more of the SpeakFluence skills, and then they hear themselves reading, they're starting to accept and be okay with change, which is huge. In any learning situation, people have to be willing to do things differently to grow. So you must be expressive, be heard, be understood, be expressive. And finally, there is a visual element. At the beginning of my outline, I say voice, visual, and vibrancy. I call those three. So where was I? The visual. So I call them the gems, your gestures, your expressive face, movement, and smile. You're not smiling all the time, but you need to find some moments to smile, because your audience is going to then be drawn into you, and they will feel an elevated connection as you smile. It's magical. Don't smile on a very depressing comment, but smile appropriately. And if we add these foundations and get better at them, wow. You're going to impact people just in casual conversation and relationships. You may even find yourself monitoring yourself and saying, maybe I could say that differently to my spouse. Just take an extra moment and speak in a certain way those words. Magic.
There's so many things you're saying that's resonating with me. I think what you teach is so relevant for really any business owner or anybody that has to, even if they're not on the stage speaking, just having conversation and trying to make an impact with what they're saying, right? And one thing you said is how you read out loud to your grandkids. And I think you should require your clients to read out children's books aloud, because you can't help but being expressive when you read children's books out aloud. There's no way to avoid that, right? You have to make the voices, you have to have the face. So, and it's interesting too, for those of you who know me, I come from a marketing background, and I do the same thing if I am helping my clients write out messaging and writing copy. I will tell them, okay, now read it out loud. How does it sound? Because what you see when you write it is not necessarily what you hear when it's read out back to you. So, yeah.
And yet when you go into the world of reading, one of my grandsons has read all of the Harry Potter books, and those are huge. And he just pounds through them, and he's 12, and it's amazing. And when you're reading novels, all of the action, it's just like this movie is going on in your brain.
Yeah.
And I'll remember a comment from my friend Eric. He said, Norm, did you know I'm a writer? I said, no, that's so cool. I had no idea. Eric is very soft spoken. I can barely hear him across the office. He says, yeah, I write. And he said, the things you're talking about, when I start to read what I write, it's just awful. I can't, there's no expression and stuff. And yet when I'm reading what I'm writing, it's all going on inside me.
Yeah.
So what my job is to help people find these wonderful little pieces and tools and skill sets that they can begin to take that printed page and make it come alive. I have a little pet peeve. Can I share a pet peeve with you?
Please do.
Okay. So everybody can Google storytelling, and I'm such a believer in storytelling, and I have 5 or 6 key elements that help people instantly make their stories better. But you can Google how to create amazing stories. So people may write out their stories and, whoa, look at my story. And it's just incredible. Here's my pet peeve. They still actually have to open their mouth and speak their story. And that's when the rubber meets the road. And that's where we have a little bit of disconnect in the world. And so that's, of course, I'm prejudiced because that's my love. It's the speaking voice that comes out.
Yeah. Well,
one additional thing, not to be dribbling on here, but as we talk about the voice, there's 2 elements. One is the voice as an instrument. Okay, so you hear my voice. Each of your voices has its own profile. When I heard 14 or 15 keynote speakers speak a couple months ago. I'm making notes. This one could be better here than da-da-da. But it's the vocal instrument. And not everybody needs a lot of work on their voice per se, but then I can take and help an annoying voice be more warm, or I can take a very soft voice and have that voice become more dynamic. So that's the voice as an instrument. And then you have the delivery, how you use your voice. I copied a quote from Simon Sinek, a thought leader who I particularly love in the area of leadership. But let me read his quote. He said, how you tell a story is just as important as what story you tell.
Mm.
And so
it's very true.
It's when the mouth opens and sound comes up. That's when I jump in.
Yeah, and you mentioned this a minute ago. You mentioned your V's of impact. Can you repeat those? It was visual,
voice.
Mm-hmm.
You can say vocal as well, but let's just say voice.
Mm-hmm.
Both the voice itself and how we use the voice. The visual now, gestures, how your face expresses what you're saying. There are people that can actually speak a very dynamic sentence without any facial expression. I don't know how they do it. So we have voice, then we have visual, and then we have that amazing, almost intangible aspect, vibrancy.
Vibrancy, that was the last one.
For me, vibrancy means presence, a sense that we can't always put in words about somebody. And it starts, I believe, with their carriage and their voice. And that vibrancy, that energy, that life-giving impulses that come from someone that causes us to lean forward and say, wow, this person's memorable.
Mm.
And the whole world is out there disseminating words. They're speaking very, day to day. And most of them, you will not remember what they said. Just the words come out and they drop to the floor. And there's answers, which is what I'm so excited about. If people are willing to change.
Well, if they really want to, they will, right?
Absolutely.
Right? You said something. You go ahead.
No, that's fine. I
You
could
said-
talk for hours, so please, I'd rather hear you speak.
You said something earlier, and I really love that because, you help a lot of business owners, CEOs, things like that. But you said, if a husband or a wife wants to speak better to their spouse, they just have to think before they speak, right? And they can use some, and I really like that. So I know you do a lot of, you have a lot of influence on the personal and the professional relationships that you have. How does your dynamic speaking voice influence the personal and professional relationships?
You'd like an example possibly of in the family or something like that? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, that you do that, impact that you're doing that's impactful.
In the family, though, or is that what you're saying? Or in relationships?
Well, the influence that you do both in the personal and the professional. Maybe you have somebody that you help them in both the personal and the professional.
I don't have specifically someone that's coming in specifically to elevate their relationships at this point, but the carryover becomes fairly clear. I share a story about my little grandson, Bo, and a couple, well, he's 5 now, but when he was maybe 3, he was on this plasma bike, and he was just scooting around our kitchen and through the living room on the hardwood floor, zipping. And I'm standing in the kitchen. He came ramming right into my leg. And of course, my initial response was maybe to get a little angry or frustrated because of the pain. And I literally caught myself and I just shut up for a minute. And then I looked down, I smiled and I said, Bo, you got to be a little more careful, buddy. That hurt Grandpa. And he just thought for a minute. He said, okay, Papa. And is off doing his thing. I know Bo. And if I had said, Bo, what are you thinking, man? And changed the tone of voice, there would have been a very sad moment for him. He would have become very defensive. Come on, we can do better in our marriages, in our relationships.
Oh, yes.
And I certainly could have done a lot better throughout my life as well.
Yeah.
That I carried
That
on.
That was such a perfect example. Even though you don't teach kids directly, we do it as human beings every day, right? Whether it's our child, a grandchild, or whatever. And it is the way that we speak. It is the way that we use our language, the tone, the taking the time to think before we speak, ensuring that the person that's hearing is also hearing it appropriately to accept it and not, as somebody said, I'm trying to find the right word that somebody told me, not take it too much in the future and cause extra problems.
Yes. We, for lack of a better word, we can call it tone of voice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yeah.
I have a teenage daughter. I feel like I use that word every day now. So your tone.
Well, think about coaches or teachers or anybody. There is tremendous power in the word encouragement. So think about approaching a problem, or leaders in companies. Can you come and correct an employee, but can you correct them in a different way? Again, back to Simon Sinek, he talks so much about empathy. And so as we grow and as we say, Jim, that project you're working with, I really appreciate your efforts. We've got a few things we need to address, but there is an upbeatness that we can say it. But a lot of people are stuck in leadership roles and they haven't been taught to be leaders. They've simply come through the ranks and they've learned a lot of the information they need to move through those ranks, but they haven't been taught necessarily how to speak with people that elevates and helps people want to do more, feel motivated in their job and want to come back the next day. And I'm hearing from some of my clients and HR divisions and so forth that companies, one of the big challenges for companies is losing their workers. People are leaving. And what I have another colleague in the area of training, and he goes in and literally helps transform these companies so that they are retaining their workers and they're creating a different environment where people are feeling empowered and also part of the teams.
I think what you're saying, it makes so much sense, like in the workplace, and especially for leaders, coaches, teachers. Even your tone of voice can be all the difference between sounding helpful and sounding condescending.
Yes.
Just simple tone of voice, right? And
Isn't
I think
it fascinating
especially when
that
we're in
people
that
don't
place.
even think about this. It's just not even
Mhm.
on their radar. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly glad Richard, my very first client, it was on his radar. It just, something snapped in him and said, I can speak better. I can communicate more powerfully. Let's see if I can find a solution.
It's great to be that self-aware and taking the steps to get help with it.
Exactly.
Have you noticed over the years, as you've been coaching and helping people find their voice, make their voice count, have you noticed like there's common voice or speech challenges that people have? I think maybe you mentioned some of them, like being heard and being loud enough and enunciating. But what are some specific things that you see like again and again, and quick tips for people to correct them if you can?
Okay. I say each person has their own speaking profile. And I have a little profile form so that I can just check the boxes or make little notes with each of my students to see their areas. And after I saturate them with my foundational training, then as we move into the transformative training that goes on in the subsequent lessons, then we work on their particular areas of, I call them limitations as opposed to weaknesses. But some of the common things are just people are a little bit bashful or haven't even thought about making their speaking more interesting, using more of their vocal range. So sometimes I may be down here, but sometimes I may be here, or I may even be here because of that principle I'm so excited about. This is vocal range. And it, again, the new techniques are a little bit initially shocks to the system. They have to actually be willing to hear themselves differently. And then one of my favorite phrases is, Stephanie, I give you permission. I give you permission to do this. Don't worry if it shocks. Oh, I can't do that. You don't have to go over the top. Okay. Read the children's books and then dial it back for your business meeting, but be more expressive. So this is, I really find that people speak in that, not necessarily monotone, but they still kind of speak in a horizontal space and they forget to leave the premises. But what happens with singing? We have what we call melody, and the melody goes up and comes down. We have dynamics of softer and louder crescendos. We have, those magical rests. We have those magical rests. And in speaking, we call them pauses. Okay. And so if you're speaking in chunks, now all of a sudden they become more interesting. Not enough time to go into all the details, but let's talk about the voice as well. There's one, how they use the voice. There's a lot of, from time to time, speaking up, where you're sounding like you're speaking in a question too much. We need to walk down the stairs from time to time and speak downward. And we can do that with our names and making statements that are more important. One last thing that does come out more than I'd like is what we call vocal fry, which is the little rattle in the throat. Little goes back into the throat and the voice has a little rattle. Or some people, it's only at the ends of phrases when they get softer and trail off, and then the voice goes back in their throat. And then some people, it's there all the time. And it is fixable. It's not that complicated, but you have to want to do the work. Okay.
That's where the magic happens.
Yes, yes. It's awesome. It is so, my wife laughs sometimes because I might come up from a lesson and she'll just see the energy that we had experienced over those 90 minutes, the changes, the epiphanies that happened in those sessions. And it's so life-giving. It's just so amazing. So I say the lines of my play and work are blurred.
It's fulfilling as well for you as the one that helped that person that needed the help, and for them as well. You know, they're now a new person. And it's very hard to help somebody welcome change. You know, they have to want it so bad that they're going to make changes in what they're comfortable in doing every day.
Yes.
So it's probably the hardest step is that change, because the rest, once they accept the change, I'm not saying that the rest of the story is not hard and no challenges and overwhelm and all that, but it makes it very a lot easier for that road. You've shared some awesome stories. I mean, from that little boy, you know, that's a little story. I know, even though, again, you don't teach children, but it is part of our everyday. You had your Richard. Any other transformative story that you can share with a different, a typical person that would need your type of business? You know, somewhere where you really helped somebody redefine their speaking voice and really had a profound impact on their life, their career.
Wow. I collect these stories and sometimes I forget them, but if I start listing them, each one has their own feel to it. Each one has their own excitement going on. I remember one wonderful friend and PhD in exercise science, sports science. And we met, my wife and I and daughter were in Baja, California on a retreat, a wellness retreat. And there were people actually from all parts of the world there in our little group of about 30 people. But this lovely lady came and tugged at my arm and said, "Hey, Norm, I hear you're a speaking coach. And do you have time to work with me while we're here on this retreat?" I said, "Sure." So we found an auditorium that wasn't being used and we worked for about 90 minutes there. She was just one of the sweetest, brilliant, most delightful people I've ever met. And from New Zealand. And she said, "Well, I'm going to be speaking more to larger groups. And I usually am speaking in board meetings to people who are already on board and I'm just casually speaking, but I feel like I could be more dynamic." So that was one area. But the second was that she had to return and to her university where she was teaching and meet with people to move from associate professor to full professor. Mm-hmm. And she said, "I'm not fitting the profile for a full professor. I may be 40 something, but I look 16, which is true." Petite, she was a sprinter in college and so forth. And so we worked again, and I said, "This is the way we'd apply these techniques. And when you go into that interview, I want you to remember my C's of influence." And so again, she could focus as a brilliant educator. And I just remember her messaging me, "I'm going into my interview, I'm just focused on the C's of influence." That's basically what she had decided to focus on. And she went into her interview and she later came out, she said she was actually tracked down and they said she was the best of the 35 interviews that had met. Just that one little tip. And then somebody who, like herself, was a very disciplined person who could apply techniques and had decided to apply them. And it was just so exciting to hear that. And over a few more hoops she had to jump through, she was granted full professorship. I like to say the ROI there was expenditure with Norm for 90 minutes, $25,000 a year raise.
I love that.
I love that ROI.
Working around there, but still, it was those moments. And because, again, what a marvelous person, you know, and to drink in and to say, this is important. I'm going to concentrate. I'm going to make notes. I'm going to focus and grow. And other people just kind of dip their toe in and say, well, I'm fine where I am, and go on their merry way. It's fine.
Yeah. I love the fact that one 90-minute call with you can make such a difference in the rest of not just their own future, but also the ones that are listening to them, right? Because we speak for others to hear. And if we don't speak properly, then they don't hear it properly. So, you know, that's what people need to understand and see. And it's not because somebody's not good that they have no place to improve.
Absolutely.
Right.
I say the make your voice count byline of mine is simply, we all have messages that we want to convey. And how do we convey them? Are you making your voice count when you do that? So I'll leave another little tip with you. I call it the magic L's. Are you ready for this? Okay.
Yes.
If people will think about these magic L's whenever they're speaking, they will have more traction. They will have more attractiveness in their speaking. They will be more memorable. They will stand out. They will be set apart. So here we go, the magic L's. The first L is you must love your message. I say, if you're an accountant and you feel like your stuff is boring, guess what? It wasn't boring to you. You just think you're just dropping that on the audience. Well, what makes accounting interesting? When that balance sheet matches, when you've got, you know, let us into your world. Jim, why was that exciting to you? But love your message and share it with others so that they feel that conviction, they feel that infectiousness about whatever you do. That's the first L. The second L is love your audience. Too many people are on stage for the wrong reasons. You should be on stage to edify, uplift, empower, influence, inspire your audiences. That's why you're there. The more you're focused on them, the less you're going to have stage fright, the less you're going to be afraid of speaking, because you are focused on committing to help others. So love your audience, and also love it to the back of the room. You're speaking to all of those people, but speak to one person, have a conversation here, have a conversation here, all of those individual speakers, people that you're speaking to. Love that audience. And the third L is one that we all struggle with in our lives. Let go of your ego. And that's simply worried about what other people think. I'm finally at the age where I really finally have learned that. I've been through too many things in my life to worry at any point what other people think. I only have myself and my God to answer to. So let go of your ego would be the last one. And as soon as you do that, you're not all internally looking at yourself all the time. You are caring about other people, and that is magical.
Yeah, I like that, the 3 L's. I want to touch on something you said earlier, kind of go back to for a second, where you talked about enunciation and you talked about the regional accents. So how does, even here, the 3 of us, we're all from different areas. I mean, Nancy's in Canada and she, her background's different. I'm born and raised in Europe. you relocated from Southern California to now Iowa, right?
Yes.
And within that, every region, every country, wherever you're from, even you use the same language, we're all speaking English, but our backgrounds and how we speak, maybe even in our original language, and the tones used, and I guess you would say the melody we use when we speak in different languages comes through in our English. So how does that kind of impact your dynamic speaking capabilities? Like, have you worked with people who speak second languages or have really heavy accents potentially, and how they can either take advantage of that, or how do they need to work around it to make it more impactful?
Yes, I'm working with a Russian gentleman right now, and I've worked with a lot of East Indian speakers as well, and different ethnicities throughout. Even a person with what we would say a thick Southern accent from the States, or different ethnicities in the way we speak. I'm not big on changing that. I'm not big on accent reduction. Some people they talk about accent reduction. I actually love accents, and I think it is you. Now, if you're going to be an actor or actress and you can change that for the screen, that's fine. But my issue is simply, can you be understood? So some people speak way too fast. They're not using pauses. So we have to slow that down. Some people, different ethnicities will have different challenges with different letters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so we'll hone in on those letters so that we can be clear when you speak a word with those letters. In my my handbook, which each of my clients or my workshop, I'm going to do a 4-hour workshop with a bunch of people with a company tomorrow. So each one of them will have my handbook, and this handbook will then allow them to practice. But one of the pages in the handbook at the back, it's called Articulation and Phonetics Practice. And we go through every single letter of the alphabet and some grouping of letters like THs and NGs and so forth. And as we go through that, it just jumps out so clearly where their challenges are. And then they can hear me say that. Actually, I'm going to do a recording of these 2 pages so that people can just punch it on and hear how to pronounce each letter and each groups and so forth. It's so exciting, though, to have a beautiful accent and then be totally clear on what they're saying. So you put those 2 together, we have the delightful seasoning and all of those wonderful spices in their speaking that comes from their own ethnicity. And then we also can relax because we can understand everything they're saying because they're speaking at a fairly comfortable pace, not too fast or too slow. And then they can speed up or slow down. They're speaking in chunks or phrases so that the meaning comes across so clearly. And it's just a beautiful thing to see those things change and to give them permission to have their accent and wrap around it. It's a beautiful thing.
It's great.
Can't hear you, Nancy.
Can't hear you, Nancy.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
I coughed before or sneezed. I had to mute myself. Thank you. It's appreciate it. I love your mindset with the mindset because yes, there are people out there that are pronunciation coaches, but I think the most important is exactly what you said. They understand. It's not about removing it. It's about people understanding. So I love that. Norm, with all the technology advancements, I'm gonna leave that word to myself. And the rise of the virtual meetings that we've had in the last few years. I mean, yes, there's a lot of people that are going back to face, of course, but there's still a huge rise of virtual meetings. How do you think the art of speaking is evolving in the digital age?
This is called a pregnant pause.
Pause for impact.
Well, let's hope it's evolving. All right. I have a friend who's a public speaker. She was doing 130 speaking engagements a year.
Oof.
You know, that's a busy person, but she loves it and she's magical. And then COVID hit, things changed. Oh my goodness. I saw her very first virtual presentation. Probably, you know, it was very quick. Boom. She did not skip a beat. Okay, she had plenty of great lighting, plenty of great sound. She had her PowerPoint that showed her story along with her vivacious personality. So she came through the camera as if she was there.
That's great.
All right. And so that's what I remember sitting on a Zoom call. There were about 50 or 60 people on the Zoom call. I think it was with one of the chambers of commerce that I'm a member of. And so if you use the gallery shot, you're going to see 25 faces, right? And then you can click on the arrow, another 25 faces on screen. So right off the bat, before anybody opens their mouth, probably 75% of those people are not very interesting. They have what we call, what Rob Jollis calls the, I had that note written down. Let me see if I wrote it down. We'll just call it the awful monotone face.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so monotone, we talk like this and we never leave the premises. Well, the monotone face is this closed countenance, like, okay, I'm listening. I don't have to have any expressions. Then there's a neutral face. And then there's the open face where the cheeks elevate a little bit and the eyebrows elevate. Now you don't even have to say a word. This person looks more interesting. So I'm making notes of about, okay, 7 of these 25 people look like they'd be interesting for me to reach out and network with. And the rest, not so much yet. So that's just visually. Then if they start to speak, again, then all of these things that we've talked about and the expressiveness and the clarity of diction is going to be coming forth or not. And so that, again, people don't know, but at least for me, they're creating a profile of who they might be. And they're wonderful people, I'm sure, but they're not as compelling. They're not as attractive in terms of wanting to connect and see what else is there. And then you'll have people, you'll say instantly, oh my goodness. I remember a Zoom call I was on with a bunch of business people, and actually you could see the whole room, the conference room. There were about 20 people. There was one lady over here you could not see. And about 2/3 of the way through the meeting, she finally spoke. I just said, oh my gosh, I want to meet that person. Just from her speaking voice for about 2 minutes. And she is a keynote speaker. She's a sales trainer and so forth. But we had a delightful meeting and she's great. But for me anyway, instantly, as soon as she spoke, and she would happen to be the only person we couldn't see on that call. But it was instantly clear. And I have stories on that too. So
yeah, and I think this is life. It's very contagious, but I love the fact it's her voice. But when you smile in front of an audience before you even speak, that is what's going to resonate with that person to even want to listen to you, whether you have something interesting or not. And just like you said earlier, being in that present moment is what really also gets you to feel that room and see, and I'm just putting something maybe different, when I'm driving and there's somebody that's, on the left side that's just, either giving me the finger or I don't know, upset about how he woke up in the morning or whatever he did or she, I smile back because at the end, maybe it'll help them have a better day. But to say, without using the words, I would just express it, smile to just enjoy the rest of your day. And you never know what happens after that.
Absolutely.
You pray for the best, but that was great.
Yeah. So I think you've given us so many great tips throughout our conversations.
Oh, yes.
And this has been such a great conversation, by the way. So I love
Well,
it.
it's been delightful to be with you, and you're doing such a marvelous work to
Thank
reach out, to engage. I'm going to be speaking with some podcasters in next month, November. Yes, in November, and so I'm creating all kinds of juicy ideas to relate to podcasters. And different podcasters are going to have different personalities, different brands that they lead out, and so forth. But I do have some opinions I'd like to share with them, since there's
Well, feel free to share with us. We'll take your opinions.
That was
well,
awesome.
you two are just delightful, and you have wonderful smiles. So thank you for that.
And thank you, Norm, for joining us. We're going to put you backstage for a few minutes while we just we're going to bring some of the tips out that you brought, and we'll come in and join you in a minute.
Thank you. And I encourage everybody to write stories down. Write your stories. You never know when you can tie them into your business or other things, and then speak them well.
Thank you, Norm.
Great to be with you.
Me too.
That was a great conversation, Nancy.
That was awesome. And yes, business owners, but for parents, for just regular people, the importance of words and language and the way that we say it. I don't think people really realize it.
Yeah.
Until they actually learn it. It was just like one of our guests a few weeks ago, Sarah Schindler. It's the way that you speak to your children, expert on kids. But yeah, some awesome tips today.
And I want to say personally, Norm, I love your passion, because it comes through in how you speak and how passionate you are about the work you do, both with the music and the speaking coaching. Yes. So it's a pleasure to kind of be around and see that passion.
Yeah. And I love the way that, like you said, he's very clear and concise, and every letter that he says sounds so perfect. I hear his V's and his P's. I could tell the practice that he's done. And it makes me realize that, oh my God, I need to work on that as well. But like he says, practice will only get you better, but learn from somebody who's been doing it, right?
I like something you said just at the end here, Nancy, about a smile. And, this is like too long ago to mention, but once upon a time, I used to work in a call center. And it doesn't matter if people see you or not. If you smile, people hear that in your voice. When you call a call center, you can tell if that person is smiling at you or if they're having a really bad day just by their voice. So yes. I think that's so important to have that smile there in your voice.
Yes.
So
yeah. And it brings a point, sometimes people, we bring our personal feelings to business where we're not smiling, where we're, whatever it is. And it's really important to learn how to not do that, so that it's not expressed in a negative way from the person who doesn't know what's going on, right? But I love the fact that Norm was talking about the importance of being expressive.
Yeah.
Very, very important to be able to do that, to be able to move that audience. And like you said, those specific words, the language, how you pronounce them, take the time to read them. And I love the example that he gave, because I don't read out loud every day. And I think that is an amazing exercise for me, for the kids. Read out loud 10 to 15 minutes every day and really apply the SpeakFluence skills that he's teaching us, and maybe even record it and have ourselves really hear ourselves speaking, so that we can really hear it, see what change we need to make. So that,
when you think back to, it was such a great example he gave, when you think back to when you were reading out loud to your kids. I mean, you're not going to read out loud to your kids in a monotone voice. That just can't happen, right?
Yes.
So I think that's just a great thing to kind of keep in the back of your mind.
Yep. And go for it. I have so many things about him, so go for it. I know we try to make this one short, but go for it.
The 3 L's as well. One that really resonated with me there was love your message. And that actually brought back memories for me when I was in college and I had to do presentations. And if it was a presentation on a topic I could not care less about, it didn't go well. I mean, it was, I would just go through it because I had to go through it. And then one time we got to pick our own topic, and I picked a topic that I was so interested in, and I did so much research, and I was so excited to share with everybody. And I think I literally spent the whole class hour with my presentation, and the teacher let me go through the whole hour only on my presentation because I was engaging and I loved my message. So I think that's so important, and it's so very true.
Yeah. And the next step was love your audience. I mean, for me, that resonates also because, like, why go and speak? What is it? Just for money? Like, why are you speaking? If you don't love your audience, why are you in business?
If you don't, you're not there to help them with what you share. That's how you love them, right?
Exactly. But with the love your message, once you love your message and you truly believe in it, then you have to find ways to love your audience because they are the ones that have the problem that they're looking for a solution, and you have the solution for it. So speak that message well and hug that audience so that they could hear that message that you want to portray. And like Norm says, love it to the back of the room. Don't just love the people that are in the front. Love them all, right? Go specifically to the back and speak to them in the back. And I really love to let go of your ego. Sometimes we forget that we're trying to impress others. If your message is good and you have a passion in what you do, just be you. People will love you for who you are. You don't have to try to impress them. Almost every call that I make of somebody that I don't know, I always say, and I'll do it to you, Anita, I know we don't know each other, but I don't enjoy to be anything but myself. Are you okay with that? Just because, I'm going to be me. You're going to either like me for who I am or you're not. And it's okay that you don't as well, right? But yeah, and I think ending on a good note is just the importance of your facial expression. Smile, be excited with what you do. It's not just being on stage, but this is in life. While you drive, while you're with a client, while you're with your spouse, while you're with the kids, smile, enjoy life. Even like it is contagious. Just try it. Okay?
Yeah.
That was awesome.
No, it was a great conversations, and we are happy that Norm was able to join us today.
Yes.
I would say make sure you keep in touch with us. Don't miss out on future episodes. Join us again next Tuesday for another exciting guest. And you can find, it seems we had some LinkedIn issues with the LinkedIn Live again today. So if you weren't able to watch all of it, you can always find the recording on YouTube at Impactful Business Voices.
Yes.
So check us out there, subscribe, and don't miss the next episode.
Yeah. Until next week, guys, go make an impact.
Thank you for listening to Impactful Business Voices. Subscribe now and don't miss an episode.